Hey there, this is Alex Kluge, and I'm here from Toronto Home Experts. And I'm here to dive into the July 2023 Toronto real estate market update. Okay, before we dive into the numbers, I just want to kind of go over this again since we're now in the summer months. And you don't want to take up too much or read too much into the data for the month of July. Typically summer months are very slow and maybe misleading into reading a little bit too much. But there's things to look at that might act as a precursor of maybe what we could expect come the fall. All right, so let's jump into those numbers right now. Okay, so sales volume is one of the numbers I like to look at in terms of getting a temperature gauge for the market. Now, if you remember our July 2022 video, you'll recall that last July was the lowest July on record for sales volume. And now we're just sitting a little bit above it at 5250, which isn't great. As we know, last year certainly we got the start of the rise in rates, and that really put a damper on the market, or put the brakes in sales. And now we're seeing a similar pattern, like we saw basically the peak in sales sometime in April, and then a slow trickle down, but still not great that we're seeing. If I'm not mistaken, like this is like the third lowest July sales volume since 2022. So anyway, so that's maybe telling us that the market is slowing down in terms of overall activity. But again, not to read too much into this because we're now in the summer, and it's really, really dangerous to read into some of these numbers during the slower months. And really, like, the barometer for the market, in my opinion, will be September. But there's certainly some trends we want to look at to sort of help us understand what may be happening. Okay, so new listings. So if you look at the new listings of where we are this year, yes, we're up 11% from last year, but the sales we just saw at 5250 relative to the listings, we're seeing a very lower sales to listings ratio, one of the lowest actually for the month of July on record, which isn't great because you want to. I think the number is at 38% typically, and that would indicate a buyer's market for the month of July, which is pretty much accurate from what we're seeing. Fewer multiple offers. Properties are taking a little bit longer to sell. Inventory is building up, so that's all factoring in. Again, summer's slow, but my expectation is we'll probably see this again in August, but the real test will be September. Like, some of that inventory going to be absorbed. Are we going to see a spike in sales? Who knows? I think really interest rates will be driving that discussion. I guess we'll see where the inflation numbers lie for August, and that'll tell us, or at least give some clues in terms of what might to expect this for the fall market. But again, we're not seeing a lot of absorption in the new listings, so we're going to see listings build up over the next, call it July, August, and then September we'll see. But so yeah, certainly, some of the numbers that we're looking at from activity and listings volume or new listings, we're seeing really sort of that build up that's may bleed into some of the fall market activities. So active listings, are basically flat from where we were last year. Again, like looking at new listings versus active listings, we are seeing a buildup. So that's something just to think about when we're looking at the August numbers as well, which we'll dive into obviously next month. Okay, so average price, that's like the number one question we're seeing right now. Like, what is happening with prices? Okay, so before I look into these numbers a little bit further, if we look at the last 21 years since Toronto Real Estate Board has been tracking the month over month averages, we have seen a decline 20 out of the 21 months. And if you could guess, when the 1 month we saw an average price increase from June, July, 2020, you're right, because that's when we saw all that pent up demand and bleed into sort of the summer months, and it was just the market was just reacting and very, very active which is unusual as obviously for July. But so last month, okay, so let's dive into what happened year over year. So average prices are up 4%, which is good, but again, doesn't say the whole picture. because we're going to get to the graph in a moment. Really you want to see like, okay, so average prices from June to July this year, average prices are down 5.2%. That's a pretty big number. And so what can we learn from it? Well, average prices, if you look at over the last 21 years, they've declined on average 3.5% from June to July. So yeah, okay, it's declined, but this is higher than usual. So, are we seeing sort of like, the gas let out a little bit of the market? Is it tilting towards a buyer's market? And it is. We've noticed it certainly. But again, it depends on the neighborhood, depends on the price point. What type of product are you looking at? You're looking at condos, you're looking at freehold, detached versus semi-detached, like where, downtown, East End versus the West End, compared to North York. Like we're seeing a big, like there's many micro markets within a market. So you can't like basically paint a brush over this and say, oh yeah, the market's slowing down. It is, and no question about it. But again, summer months, we don't want to put too much emphasis on this, but there are markets that are performing really, really well, and that's typically what I would call entry level markets. So entry level, like freeholds, like in and around like $1 million to 1.3, like that segment is still really, really doing well, and condos like sub 600K ish. That market is still quite active, but the other markets are a little bit more balanced. And again, summer, people are away on holidays. I know a lot of people travel during July and August with schools out and so forth. So that obviously is impacting things. But okay, so GTA average price. So here's the graph I want to show you. Like what I think is the most encouraging, and I think we have to really take into account, is like comparing to where we were from last fall. Like, it looks like the bottom was, call it December, November, we're still up, vis-a-vis those prices. Like if you look at where we were, call it August, September, October, like really, the fall market, we're still up about 3%. So that I think is, a positive indication. I do expect average prices likely to go down again next month in August, but we'll probably see a rebound if rates are paused and we're not seeing a rise in fixed rates or variable rates. But again, time will tell. And this, I don't have a crystal ball or anything, but really the inflation data that comes out next month will really be an indication of what to expect there. But anyway, so average prices are down slightly for month over month, and but they're still up relative to where we were last fall, which I think is probably the most encouraging sign to look at when you're really diving into some of these numbers. Okay, so what's performed well in terms of pockets in the GTA? And I don't think this should surprise anyone, really. Like the two leaders are Durham and York region. Like those have performed really the best month over month relative to where we were. Sorry, relative where we were last year at this time. So average prices in Toronto are up slightly. Halton they're flat, Peel they're flat. We've seen reasonable increases in Durham and in York region. So those are the regions that are performing the best. And again, Toronto's up slightly as well. So again, these are average prices. They account for condos, townhouses, semi-detached, detached. So like we all lump them in together. So it takes an average price. But really what you have to look at is how is my particular, if you're a homeowner right now, how's my particular neighborhood or pocket performing relative to other pockets in the GTA? And that's really the question. And so, you can't, as I said, like, generalize too much in this market, especially in July. But, looking at where we were sales wise, we're seeing a little bit of a like pause in the market, so to speak. So I'm really, really curious to see where September starts off and, what kind of market we're going to see. August is actually the slowest month of the year, so I expect similarly, similar trends. Hopefully, we're not seeing an average price decline similar to what we're seeing from from June to July. So July to August, I expect it to be a little bit more muted. But again, it's too early to tell. We're only recording this like just 10 days into the month of August. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been certainly an interesting one to look at. As I said, summer, might be a precursor of some trends for the fall. Like, we will see. Could this mean that the market will continue to slow down in the fall? Possibly. Or could we see a sharp rebound in the fall? Personally, I don't expect a sharp rebound upwards this fall. I probably see a little bit more of the same, similar to what we saw last year, where sort of we kind of were flat, up plus or minus a couple percentage points, and it'll be very much a wait and see market relative to interest rates and what kind of direction we may be going into this fall and heading into Q1 2024. All right. Well, anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe. Please continue with the questions. We love the commentary that we're getting. And we will see you again next month. Bye for now.